So the stream has a bit higher latency. We're using a new streaming platform as of this time around. So if it feels like there is a lag in answering questions in real time, then that's why. We may fiddle with streaming settings later on to decrease latency. But yeah, switching from StreamYard to Restream on this, and we'll see whether that works out well. Alrighty, it is the top of the hour, so we will get started here. After I make sure that I'm on the correct one. There we go. Yep. Yeah. So, welcome to MergePHP. We are a collaboration of user groups across the US and Canada talking about PHP and PHP adjacent topics online. We meet second Thursday of the month virtually on YouTube with stream recordings available other points at 6 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We have a bunch of user groups represented here between Atlanta, KC, Utah, Portland, Austin, San Diego, Vancouver, Seattle, Vegas, and Boston. Let me actually move my little handy dandy. Let's do this. There we go. We have a JetBrains license raffle. Shoot an email to chris@atlantaphp.org and you'll be entered to win a 1-year license key for any JetBrains product. This not only works for PHP Storm, but for others in their family of IDEs. And given the recent announcement about price increases, this is more valuable than ever. So enter now. And yeah, that's that. As a reminder, PHP gets 2 years of active support plus a few days, plus 2 years of security patches. If you are on an older version of PHP, that is EOL. Unless your Linux distribution is backporting security fixes, your PHP runtime probably has a bunch of CVEs in it, and you'll likely want to get that upgraded so you don't get exploited. at least of the PHP runtime layer. PHP 8.4 is the current version of PHP. 8.5 will be out later this year. 8.3, 8.2 are still fine. 8.1 is still fine. 8.0, yeah, not so much. We are visible to at least some extent on various social networks. YouTube is probably the best place to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. We are also on PHPC Social on the Fediverse, as well as on Twitter. If you just want to hang out and chat outside the YouTube live stream, we have the MergePHP channel on the PHP community Discord server. If you would like to present at MergePHP, hop over to mphp.io/speakers, or message us, or just add us on one of our other social platforms, including Discord. Speakers are the lifeblood of any user group, whether virtual or in person. And whether you're presenting 5, 10, 15-minute lightning talk or a full-length presentation, we'd love to have you. Appears as, there we go. That's the slide I was missing. So there are a lot of conferences and events coming up. And in fact, there are enough that I am, my little profile photo is overlapping some. Let's move that up here. So we got Laravel Live, WordCamp, US, API Platform Conf, and BadCamp, ranging from US-based to otherwise. Have a whole lot of these local WordCamps over the course of the next few months. If you're in Spain, CakeFest is October 9th and 10th. A number of Symfony and Symfony adjacent conferences. And then Longhorn PHP is where I am in Austin, Texas, October 23rd through the 25th. We have announced our keynote speakers, and I believe we'll be announcing our schedule on Monday. Got between talks, tutorials, and keynotes, over 40 different pieces of content over 3 days, 3 tracks, about 35 speakers, I believe, including some international ones. Really excited to announce that schedule, and blind bird tickets are still available if you're willing to take my word for that schedule being pretty great. Later on in the year, you've got Laravel Day, DrupalCon Japan. The DrupalCon Atlanta was earlier this year. And then we're getting into November and December, and then a little bit of a break, and then right back in with Symfony Online, DPC, another DrupalCon, etc. I also believe PHP UK will be back in 2026. More on that to come. And PHP Tech has also announced their 2026 dates. So when you account for WordPress and Drupal and such, there are a fair number of conferences out there to attend. With that, bouncing around again. Here we go. You'll have tonight Josh Copeland presenting on stepping up your vibe coding game and actually getting some use out of these newfangled LLM tools. So I will bring him on screen here. drop my slides. Yep.
Hey. Tim photobombed us for a little bit there.
All right. Go ahead and share your screen, and I'll bring that up.
Alrighty. All right. Let me see if you can see that okay.
Let me drop off of.
Bear with us, guys. We just got a new provider for our live stream platform. Let us know if you guys see any glitchiness, whether it's audio, video, or anything like that. So far, I think we're really enjoying this new provider, but just let us know if you guys notice anything different between the last Merge PHPs we've done. But yes, thank you, Ian. Again, you rock. I appreciate the intro there, and always hosting this because MergePHP is awesome. I mean, none of us make a single dime off of this. We're in this for the love of the game. So everybody who's got a user group, salute to you. It takes a lot to run a user group, and if you're not a part of MergePHP, we're always welcoming new people, whether you're just new to programming or you're a veteran that's been doing it forever. We're always looking for speakers. So as Ian said, there's a link that you can submit your talk. We love to hear from you guys, right, and girls. We always have a wide range of topics. And as today, although we're touching in the PHP space, we are, of course, yet another AI talk, which is funny because this talk is probably going to be dated by the time I do this at conferences in the future. In fact, I'm doing this same talk next week at PHP Vegas. And by then, some things will actually probably have changed. I feel like this is like a front-end framework thing again, where LLMs are the new front-end frameworks. But all of that aside, thank you so much, Ian. If you have not grabbed your ticket to Longhorn, do that. Great conference. Super excited to be sponsoring that. We'll talk a little bit about that here in a second with my company. But today we're going to be talking about vibe coding. So this is like a loaded term. Some people are like, oh, vibe coding. Like some people take it as a negative thing. Some take it as a positive thing. However you take it, I've been kind of really diving into this, especially enabling my team to be dangerous with this stuff. Because if you're not staying ahead of the curve here, you're going to get left in the dust, right? So always trying new things. This is me wearing the stupid Apple Vision. By the way, I returned this like a week after I bought it, right when the return window, because I did not like it. I was getting headaches. Not a huge fan of VR, but it was a slick product. Anyway, I've been programming since 2006. So my first was PHP 3 before classes and all that good stuff. So I've been messing around with PHP for quite some time, and absolutely fantastic language. And as you can see with the elephants behind me, is a true part of my history in programming in general here. I'm the CTO of Remote DevForce, which is a freelance software development company that I've been running since 2010. We are sponsoring Longhorn. We love Longhorn. We love these conferences that are the tight-knit. You really get to know the speakers. You can talk to them out in the hallways, and everyone's super friendly there. Always an amazing time at that conference, especially Cascadia too, when that comes around. That was an amazing conference as well. And all the conferences in general, I mean, they're all amazing. So by no means is PHP going down. I feel like we're on another uptrend here. And I also run the user group called PHP Vegas. We've switched so many names over the years, but bottom line, we've been running that user group here in Las Vegas since 2012, and it's been a core part of the programmer community here in Vegas. I can see some of you folks in the chat. Shout out Rick Myers from Vegas. We've got Atlanta, Cincinnati in the chat. Feel free to, throughout this conversation, where I basically spew off these slides. By the way, bear with me. This is a rough draft of this talk. I'm cleaning it up every day, but I think you folks will get a gem or two out of this. So if you have questions during this, drop them in the chat at the end, or maybe even between. I'll try to take a peek at the chat and answer them as best as I can. So let's jump right into it here. And the reason I wanted to do this talk, by the way, is because, when I was looking at Claude and some of this stuff, it really rang true to Laravel, because Laravel is a lot like Lego bricks. I was always a huge fan of Symfony before Laravel was around. And when Laravel came around, it was like the easy to use thing. And the barrier to entry to programming was just a lot easier. You didn't need to be a senior dev to start building something and being dangerous with the framework. So with AI, I feel like Laravel lends itself very well to building prototypes and things like that in AI. So we'll talk a little bit about that. A little history lesson here for all you youngins that are getting into development. Back in the day, well, I got to get my cane. I have a cane here somewhere. Here it is. Let me shake my cane at the air. Back in my day, before even Google, which maybe when I was programming HTML pages as a youngin, I had to buy books. I still have a few books here. My Programming for Teens book. This is the book that I literally learned how to program right here. I still have this book to this day because I was trapped in summer with no computer and read this front to back on how to program without it. Ooh, dust flew out of it. Without a computer, and learned how to program without putting one finger on a key. Came back home to a computer after a summer break, and boom, my life changed. Anyway, there was books before now, and then it kind of went into Google and Stack Overflow, right? Copy an error, paste it into Google, dig through some Stack Overflows. Hopefully you didn't just copy and pasted it. Hopefully you understood the solution. But then now we've got all of these brand new things coming out. First, there was ChatGPT that blew up a year or two ago, right? Everybody was super hyped about it. It really was showing a lot of promise. People were starting to get a little nervous about their jobs and stuff like that. To this day, it's scary, but it's also mind-blowing. You got to look at it as a tool, not a replacement, though, right? So don't hate these things off the bat. Use them. Become familiar with them. If you don't, you're going to be performing at a slower rate than people who are using these tools. But again, just like with Google, understand the implementation. We'll talk a little bit about that here in a second. These are some of my favorites here: Claude Code, ChatGPT, Gemini. We're going to talk a little bit about each of them. I only have one slide on the Devin AI thing, but I'll briefly talk to you about what all that's about later on here. So let's go. Shout out MySpace. Yes. MySpace, actually, I saw a funny meme that was like, you could edit HTML, and everybody was like, I didn't know. I was like changing my profile and flirting with a 6-figure income in MySpace back in the day, right? And some people didn't keep running with the whole like learning how to do web dev. But anyway, I found this interesting. One of my developers, shout out Jeremy Sarda, awesome developer. He mentioned that this Andre Karpathy was the one that actually coined the term vibe coding. Although it doesn't specifically say vibe coding, he basically said this in February of this year. Shows you how quickly this stuff is moving. It's a new kind of coding where you fully give in to the vibes and embrace the exponentials and forget that the code even exists. You embrace the vibes, vibe coding. But what's funny is it's just a month later, okay, after vibe coding for a month. He basically says, whoa, whoa, whoa. The second you start straying from the getting started tutorial, suddenly you're in the woods, right? I mean, by the way, if anybody has this laptop with the screen that's on behind the laptop, that's impressive. I don't know if that's like a double screen where there's a screen on the front and screen on the back, but hey, I guess that's what I get for trying to generate this with AI, right? So a little bit about, the components here. We got to think about using AI in the sense of, let's call it personas or expertises, right? AI is very good when you give it a small chunk of work. If you're very vague, which sometimes I am, and I have to backtrack and give it more detailed context and prompts, you'll start to get it to hallucinate, generate bad things, and then you got to go back and fix it. So at any point when you're using AI to do stuff, try to think of it in these categories, right? And there are some things that overlap, but at the same time, if you can break down the tasks into some of these individual categories, you're going to get better responses. So as you go through, and this list actually came from Andre Karpathy. When he posted this, he kind of said, there's so much going on when it comes to doing web development that AI can quite easily start to get confused, redo work, implement the same libraries it already has, duplicate code. Things can get weird, right? So the more you're breaking down things, the better. So the way I kind of treat AI right now is how you would treat a junior developer, right? You're going to provide more upfront planning. And some people have thrown out the term prompt engineering. Prompt engineering was a big thing people have been talking about, but lately people have been trying to change that to context engineering, because yes, you can write hey, go do this. But if you're not saying, and here's the file you need to go do it in, it needs to go grep your whole project and figure out where it needs to do this. Context meaning, here's the file or here's the directory, and give it some context as to how to perform this, just as you would a junior developer. You wouldn't go tell the junior dev go fix this bug. You would tell the junior dev, I have a feeling the bug is over here in this section of the code. Give it some context. You also want to set some rules and expectations. You can do that through a Claude MD file, whether it be locally in the project or throughout your whole machine. We'll talk a little bit about that later. You want to emphasize clean code. You want to, and this is part of the talk I'm still putting together, but getting the thing to run automated tests. So doing linting, cleaning up the code, right? Running formatters, PSRs, formatters, things like that. Adopting your standards, running some of those things not only after, but more importantly before too. That way it knows, hey, it worked before I touched it, and you broke it, right? And it can kind of sit there and iterate and figure out how to get those tests to pass. Which, by the way, back in the day, a month ago, some of these AI models would literally just put in the test return true. Luckily, they've fixed that bug to fix. It's go fix a test. It would just go literally put return true in the end of the test. And then, since then, they've actually fixed that. But just bear with me here. But as far as the tests are concerned, you really need and I always not despised, but it was a tedious task. Writing tests, writing docs. AI is so good at it. So good at it, especially with the Playwright MCP, which we'll talk about here later. It's very powerful. So again, break up complex projects into small tasks, and you don't need to do this all yourself. Sometimes I've used Gemini or ChatGPT and gave it some context as to what I'm trying to do and told it, hey, break this down into smaller tasks. You can now do this with Claude and subagents and some other fancier stuff that I don't quite dive into here. But later on, when I give this talk again in the future, I'm definitely going to be including more examples like that as I experiment more with it. Because, again, this stuff's only been out, feels like, what was it, less than a year? It's been out longer, but as far as Claude Code, it's really hit hard this year for sure. There's things you can do to make AI work in your code base easier. Shout out Adam Englander. He kind of talked about this in his AI talk as well. But breaking your project into the domain-driven design. So, basically having certain compartments or components of your code that are dedicated to specific domains of your application, rather than having kind of spaghetti code, which, by the way, if you just tell AI go do this, will happily go write spaghetti code for you. So if you give it more context as to, try to architect it and plan it out, which I'll talk a little bit about the architecture side of this in a second here, will make your life easier and make the AI generate better code for you in the long run as well. As well as maybe you could break things up into microservices. That's another option. Or the old school way, simple directory structures, right? Just break up stuff and not have 1,000 files in one directory or whatever, or having a front end and a back end directory, whatever, right? In the case of Laravel, things are broken up there between Blade and all that, so it's not too bad. And AI does a pretty good job about navigating all of that. All right, so what in this talk, I'm going to mainly highlight Claude Code. Now, there are others, and we'll briefly talk about those. Before Claude Code, I was doing a lot of GitHub Copilot. I was using the Continue plugin, which I actually did a talk. I think you can dig back in the MergePHP videos on YouTube and probably find my old Continue Olama talk. But that's a great talk and still has a place today to run local models and to avoid the high costs of Claude. But I will tell you, the $100 or $200 you're going to pay for this max plan here is worth every penny. It's been talked about in some of the AI circles that Anthropic may backtrack on this plan here. So I hope to God they grandfather people who sign up for this. I am signed up on the Max 20X plan. In fact, I share it with a developer. Well, Claude, please don't cancel my, maybe I broke terms of service by saying that, but you know, I've yet to hit the max usage sessions here, and I probably would have paid thousands of dollars in AI costs had I not signed up for this. So I would suggest you take a look at this if you do plan on making this a part of your normal day-to-day workflow. So to install Claude Code, after you sign up for it, you run a simple npm install. That's what's beautiful about Claude Code is part of it has this kind of, you know, open source feel to it in the sense of this Claude Code. By no means am I an LLM developer, but there are some chunks of Claude Code that are really important that are open source. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. But first, what we're going to do is just run npm install Claude Code, and we're going to get that set up. You can see here, it says, hi, I'm Claude Code. Do you like dark mode? Of course, I love dark mode. Let's go. By the way, best mode. I still hold that. I tried all the other ones. I like dark mode. And gives you this cool, like, Super Mario Brothers looking 8-bit, you know, logo. I love it. Feel like I just opened up Mario Brothers on the NES. And it wants you to log in. So starting for the $20 a month, maybe if you want to just test the waters, you could do the $20 a month pro one. I think they might even have a trial or free tier thing. I'm not sure. But yeah. So once you do that, you go through this whole like login process. And you authorize your account, just like SSO kind of, you know, SAML login. And then boom, you kind of get logged in. What's cool, you get a little alert that pops up like, hey, you're logged in. And now it tells you go do stuff. Go build something great. So after you're logged in, then you're kind of presented with, yo, Claude Code can like add a lot of security holes if you don't know what you're doing. Or there are other risks to using AI. For example, there's like prompt injection and things like that. So I took a look at their docs, and here are kind of like the main things they point out as far as security is concerned. Be careful with what you grant access to. So for example, I have a projects folder on my laptop. I stuff all of my projects in there. That's where I initialized Claude Code. So it really can't jump out and start like jumping around in my root of my Mac and doing God only knows what, right? Like it has only access to that projects directory. And be careful of like prompt fatigue mitigation. So if you end up like copying other prompts from the interwebs and just pasting it in, who knows what that's using? If you have certain MCPs installed, these servers, and you're sending all your data out to who only knows where, there could be some security implications because of that. And then if you're just like blindly accepting everything AI does, Of course, it could be also adding security holes. There are things you can do to mitigate that a little bit. That we'll talk about that later. But bottom line, it's very easy to get lazy when it comes to using something like Claude Code. And you can go into this kind of like YOLO mode where instead of looking at all the changes it's doing, you're just blindly accepting everything. You feel powerful, but at the same time, you lose grasp of what it's done. And if a production issue happens and you have no idea how to actually go and, debug it, then you're going to be in a heck of a ride right there, right? So, and yeah, we talked about prompt injection. Just be careful there. What you're doing as far as anything you copy, malicious text that could be inserted into some of these prompts, things like that. All right. So for some best practices, review suggested commands before approval, right? I talked about that. But as you use Claude, it goes, hey, here's the changes I'm going to do. Do you like these? Accept or no, or make some modifications. I would suggest you start in this mode. If you really just want to YOLO it and it's just a pet project, of course, go with it. But if you're working on a production system and it's making serious money, you don't want to be YOLO moding this, right? You want to understand what's going into the code base, because quite often than not, it may go and add duplicated code or not put stuff in the right directories, right? Sloppy stuff. That's where going back and forth and kind of training your session with Claude really helps over time to teach it how best to kind of go about developing, right? And so, yeah, we're going to kind of just skip over some of this stuff. I don't want to take up too much time on that, but definitely look into more of that kind of stuff. And as I talked with security, there's a whole litany of things going on. I know the top one is, oh my gosh, all of my production code's going into this LLM. They could be feeding it to competitors, or not feeding it to competitors, but maybe somebody can figure out a way to get it another project to spit out in theirs, or, maybe there's some truth to that. I've heard arguments either way on that, but bottom line, whatever your company's comfortable with, do. If your company's super tight about security, take a look at Olama, local models, because all of that sits on your machine. It's just not going to be as powerful as Claude can be. So just take that into account. So after you get it set up, you're going to go through all this stuff. It's going to ask you, hey, do you want it to be able to do everything in this directory? And then you end up with this beautiful screen, which is your prompt window. You're going to get very familiar with this look, this little box at the bottom that says, what do you want me to do, sort of thing. So I asked it, I said, hey, I'm doing this vibe coding talk. I want to teach other people how to use Claude Code, and it needs to be in PHP Laravel. What are some examples you could suggest? So it gave me some of these lame examples, and I was like, these all suck. Like, those are all lame, is what I told it. Can you think of something that speaks more into the vibe coding that is edgier? And so I came up with these other cool ideas. And one of them rang true to me, which is the meme stock trading bot. So I was a part of the GameStop hype. I made a ton of money, lost a ton of money. Separate talk. Even back in 2008, made a ton of money, lost a ton of money. It was a lot of fun. I do not have the mental fortitude to day trade. But a lot of fun, and this spoke to me. So I said, let's do it. Let's build a meme stock trader with Laravel, and I want you to just like YOLO this, right? So I basically told it, go for it. Plan the whole thing out. I sat here for a while going back and forth with this thing, but before anything happened, it's like, hey, this needs your permission to start using Bash. I said, yep, go for it. And it started saying, we're going to make this directory. We're going to switch in. We're going to do create project Laravel, just as you would copy from their docs, and start running with it, right? So what was funny is it gives you these quirky little things as it's thinking. One of them says vibing, which I found quite hilarious. You'll see a litany of different terms it uses here as it's thinking. I love it. But yeah, it started building it. And this little video here, I'm not sure if this is going to play quite well. We're doing a little inception here, YouTube within YouTube within YouTube. But you can see here, this is a sped up, I think like 80x or something crazy. But this is me sitting here watching it develop code, asking me, are you sure you want to do this? And to be honest, a lot of it I skimmed over and just hit yes, 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 yes. But again, production, read through it more, right? Really understand what it's doing, especially with the existing project. You want to be quite careful about what it does. But you can see it's going through these checklists here and developing it. So anyway, at the end of this, I'm going to just kind of skip right past this if I can. Whoops, did not mean to do that. I apologize. Come on. It hijacked my right key. I am sorry about this. Let me manually click the AI did not fix that apparently. Oh. There we go. Okay, we're back. Okay, so at the end of this whole like back and forth with Claude to build this meme stock trader, I was like, okay, cool. I spent, probably 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it was, having it build this thing and just kind of, babysitting it. It doesn't work. Well, I mean, there was just like a 404 page. I had no idea how to even run this thing. I was like, okay, I built it, but like, how do I do this? So I actually asked it again. I was like, can you like make a how to use MD file and like tell me how to use this thing? So sure enough, it did. It told me how to run it. So boom, I was able to run it. And wow, I was quite surprised with the homepage I was greeted with. When I looked at it, I was like, oh, this looks pretty nifty. One thing you'll notice about AI is it loves emojis. Holy cow. I mean, it loves emojis more than Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, double X combined, right? Anytime you see that in like a write-up, just know the person used AI to talk to you, because no normal human being uses over like maybe 2 or 3 emojis in a single sentence. Anyway, I was like, okay, that's cool, but like how, there's no data in it. So I ran the database seeder. There was like a database seeder it had, and I started to see stuff in here, and I was like, okay, like I kind of see what's going on here, but like, how do I run this thing? And then I was greeted with this. It's like, no, you need to run this like artisan command that goes and scrapes Reddit. It looks for all the people talking about stocks and tries to rank them based on who's how many times it gets mentioned. If there's like certain emojis like diamond hands or whatever, right? It was kind of funny. So I wiped out the seeder. I reran this, and now it's actually been running on my machine. I guess today the markets were open. I'd be curious at the end of this if I open it up and see, because what it does is every 30 minutes this thing will run. And then once it sees the stock is hot, it'll go and do a paper trade. So it's not like this is connected to my E-Trade. I could, if I did, I'd probably be bankrupt right now or a millionaire. I don't know. I'll take a look at the P&L after this. But, I could see it was doing stuff. But the one thing I noticed that was busted was the prices. Everything says 0 here. So that was kind of concerning when I looked at this. By the way, as I was looking at the screen, I got a notification from Wall Street Bets. Don't judge me. Okay, I know I shouldn't be in there, but don't judge me. But yes, maybe I am subscribed to that Reddit just to kind of keep an eye on there. Don't go in there. Nothing good. But it did talk about this Kava thing, which it's some restaurant group, whatever, and I noticed it's in here. Big part of me wanted to like jump in today. I noticed it's been tumbling like crazy. Might be a good opportunity for an option contract to do a put or a short or something. But anyway. Again, I've lost a lot of money. Don't listen to me. But maybe this script might be able to make us money, right? Maybe it's smarter than me. So one thing I noticed when I looked in the how to use, like the docs, it said, hey, for production use, you need to run this thing every 30 minutes, right? But probably need to run it more in a real scenario. But it gave me this like cron tab, and I'm like, I can't install cron tab on my Mac. So I actually told Claude, hey, can you make me a launch D, which is like the cron tab of Mac, to run this command? And it was like, yeah, for sure, I got you. And so it went and made this install launchd bash script that goes and actually installs. Hopefully I remember to uninstall it, because from knowing me, I'll forget it, and like 5 years from now, I'll like realize it's been like scraping Wall Street bets for like, forever. That would be interesting to see the P&L then, though, huh? So as you go through, by the way, try to use Claude in your terminal within your IDE. For this example here, like in those previous screenshots, I was using iTerm2 to run Claude. Then I open IntelliJ. Shout out JetBrains again. Shoot those emails off. We've got free JetBrains licenses for all you beautiful people. We don't know how long that's going to last. Like he said, they're raising prices and stuff, so try to get those while you can. But shout out JetBrains. Thank you for sponsoring us. We love you. I use IntelliJ, and sure enough, it had some automatic integrations. I didn't even need to do anything. I didn't need to go install a Claude inspection or whatever. Like, for some reason, it just worked. I don't know. Some black magic stuff going on here. But anyway, one thing I noticed was there was a bug. Like, there's no current stock price going on here, right? So we needed to fix that. But before we go and fix that, I don't want to use vanilla Claude anymore. Everything we've been showing is just install Claude and run, right? We want to supercharge Claude. This is where things get spicy. This is called Super Claude, okay? Now, mind you, this stuff's changing every day. In fact, some of the YouTube videos I was looking about Super Claude were talking about V2, all that's out of date, and that was just a little while ago. Now, all of a sudden, Claude 3's out. Shout out YouTubers who are doing AI content right now. I salute you folks, because you make a video and it's outdated in a week. Holy cow. So what Super Claude gives you is smart personas. So remember what we're talking about: backend, front end, architecture, testing, security, debugging, QA, project management, all of those different personas built right into your Claude. It also allows you to leverage something called Context 7. Context 7 is a way for you to integrate new documentation for projects, because again, some of these models are they were developed years ago, and some of those docs are out of date within the model. So it needs fresh docs. It needs fresh examples to use these modern frameworks, to use modern code, to use the updated versions. Context 7's MCP gives you that power. There's also something called sequential thinking. Sequential thinking allows the Claude to actually break up tasks into subagents and think about things in a sequential manner, just as you would break a complex problem into individual tasks. Then there's also something called magic. Where are my notes? Yeah, it does something. It does magic. And then there's Playwright. Playwright is basically the cool, like I used Panther in the past. Playwright's like the bee's knees. I really, really like Playwright. They did it quite well. Basically, just think of Google Chrome browser integrated with Claude. It can go and pull up your web app, debug stuff for you, click around, do all that cool stuff, right? So it's literally giving Claude an arm into the internet. To install Super Claude, you just need to, well, for my case, I ran brew install UV. I am by no means a Python expert. I only recently found out about UV, and it just shows you how I am. But UV is like the cool new thing to get Python installed, and you can switch Python versions and do backflips and all that kind of stuff. But if you're going to use Python, UV is the way. Get that installed. Then you do get clone Super Claude. There's a back here, that github.com at the bottom left of this slide. I'll be sure to share the slides here with you folks. But if you just go Google Super Claude, you'll find it. But you want to clone that project down, go into the GitHub repo on your local machine and run UV sync. After you do that, you'll run this Python m Super Claude install, and you'll be greeted with this screen. By the way, I know some people do talks that are like super high level. I've always done talks that are jam-packed with screenshots and a lot of information, so I apologize if I'm like dumping the bucket of water on you rather than handing it to you folks, but that's just my presentation style. So here we go. We're in the installation screen. I just chose quick install and boom, said go install it. We're not done yet though. We need to actually now go set up these MCP servers. So it's called Model Context Protocol. This talk is not about it. So go look it up somewhere else and learn about it. But basically, it's just these servers that allow you to leverage external APIs, external dependencies and things like that to go do nifty stuff, right? So Super Claude gives you these powerful Claude commands. So within Claude, you have these slash commands everywhere, okay? In fact, if you just type question mark when you have a Claude prompt open, it gives you all of the available commands that you can run. This here is the Super Claude one. So you can see slash to start a command in Claude, and then SC : SC meaning Super Claude. Then you have all of these. Each one of these has a very detailed prompt context that goes along with your ask to give Claude the best chance of doing the job right. Okay? So go ahead, read all of these in more detail. I by no means am an expert in all of these. I've heavily used implement, build, troubleshoot, get, but there's a whole bunch of these I still haven't played with enough. Analyze I've used as well. In fact, we'll talk about that here in a second. But feel free to go check out their docs in the Super Claude repo. It has a lot of great information in there about flags, personas, and all that good stuff. The SE implement one is where I want to tell it, hey, we need to go pull current prices of stocks because, again, when it built it, for some reason, it just decided not to pull live stock info. And it created a bug, so we need to go fix it. Well, now with Super Claude, we're going to say /SC implement, and then we're going to say add a way to pull current price of stocks when the key symbol @ that @ symbol is providing context. When you do @ you're going to provide either a directory or a file, and Claude knows that that's a directory or file it should use when it's doing the job. Okay? It's important because if you just vaguely tell it, if I just told it go do stocks, it's going to use a whole bunch more tokens to try to dig around. It may do it wrong, may not do it the way you want it to do, whatever, right? Try to be explicit with where to go to make those changes. Then in my .env, at the end of this, when it built it, it was like, okay, by default, we'll use Yahoo, which they've been doing stocks forever. It's funny. I remember scraping Yahoo like years ago for stock data. So it's funny it chose that. It also threw in this Polygon IO thing. I don't know. I didn't look at that. But apparently maybe if I got throttled by Yahoo, I could use that. For all I know, I've gotten throttled already. But anyway. And then I still noticed that after it did that, it wasn't working quite right. I noticed that the something about the stock, although it built in the way to go fetch the prices, when I reran the script, I still didn't see any stocks updating. So there was a bug. There was still a bug. Even though it went and it grabbed the stock prices, it still wasn't updating the database with the current stock price. So again, although it did its job in implementing the feature, there was still a bug. This is where troubleshoot comes in for Super Claude. I told it, SE troubleshoot, we want to think through a bug. Stock prices are still updating. And then I gave it context. I think, just as you would a junior dev, I think it might be this Boolean, because I went and looked at the code, right? Like, I kind of gut checked it myself, like, how come it's not updating? What? Looking around, and then I was like, I have a feeling it's this like Boolean thing that it threw in there. Sure enough, after doing this troubleshoot stuff, boom, it worked. By the way, Kava is down like another 10% or something. I don't know. So good thing I didn't buy that. But if I shorted it, maybe I'd made a few bucks by now. But anyway. One thing about Claude is, and I'll talk about it a little bit here in a bit, but just as with ChatGPT 5 just came out a few days ago, I think, right? This stuff is developing all the time. There's new models coming out and all this. I mean, bottom line, out of the box, just go for the moon. Use the best one that's out there. The only problem with that is you're going to reach usage limits a lot quicker. Now, mind you, with my use, and it's not super heavy, but it's heavy enough that I would have expected to hit Opus's limit. I still haven't. So kind of interesting, but you probably have to really be abusing this thing in order to actually hit that limit. What I've heard from other experts with Claude is if they do hit the Opus limit, they'll switch to Sonnet and do Think Harder, which we'll talk about that here in a little bit. In Claude's recommendations for what to use, they actually say like go use Haiku if you're just doing simple stuff, but then later it's like just use Opus 4, like just use the best one because that's going to give you the best results. But it was kind of saying like if you got simple stuff, go use 3.5. I think it's their way of like, hey, let's not get Opus overused. Let's like try to give some of that work to some of these older models. I mentioned Think Harder. It's this is really funny, by the way, when I kind of came across this, but there's basically these like built-in things into Claude that I'll show here in a second. But the way that this is architected within Claude itself is how many tokens, how many like how much context should it build before it goes and starts actually trying to implement something. So if you say, hey, go think about this issue or whatever, it's going to roughly use like 4,000. If you say, hey, think hard about this problem, it's going to try to use 10,000. So it's going to like double its like effort. If you say think harder, which is funny, there's kind of some funny other words you could use instead of think harder. But it's really going to put a lot of tokens, 32,000, right? So again, if you have to switch to, Sonnet or something before Opus, maybe throw in Think Harder, and you'll get some good responses still out of those old models. I say old, but it's like a couple months or whatever. Now here's this SuperClaude Analyze. Now that we've got like this somewhat working project, I wanted to ask it like a vague question just to kind of see how it would do with this. Analyze is a really cool thing that you can do with your existing projects. So I would suggest like if you do want to start with Claude in a production code database that your company's not afraid of, using this sort of stuff, maybe the first thing you should do is get SuperClaude installed and run this analyze. It's not going to go change anything. It's just going to give you some solid components about what it thinks could be improved about your project. And we'll show a little bit of that here in a second. But what's funny is when I ran this analyze command, you can see it kicking off this sequential thinking MCP that we installed earlier. And it actually is like going through this like process loop to kind of think through things in a logical way. So it just allows it to think through issues in a lot more powerful way, just as a human would. At the end of the analyze, this is where it came up with this. So it's funny that Claude built this, and the overall assessment of this project is, yeah, it's a functional prototype, but it's got significant technical debt. Bro, you built this. Like you built it with, so it's like, it's funny it built it and then it's like trashing itself. But I found that hilarious. Anyway, it gives you this kind of list of like critical issues, like what it thinks that you should do to more harden. And behind the scenes, SuperClaude is using personas to figure out things like this. So security and SuperClaude does a good job about automatically switching to different contexts and different personas with different flags for you. But you can provide those when you're running SuperClaude. You can say, think like an architect, think like a front end or whatever, right? So think like a designer. You can tell it to specifically think like a certain way. In this case, it thought like an architect, right? It thought about the whole project from an architectural level. And it gave me kind of a list of things. Then what was funny is it gave me this whole list of a 2-month plan to go build the project better, which by no means am I going to spend 2 months building a meme stock trader. I've got bigger fish to fry here. But it was funny. Just I'm like, Okay, can't you do this in like 12 hours? Why are you telling me 2 months to do this? Month 2? Okay. Super Claude has these flags and personas like I talked to you guys about. Feel free to dive into this more later, but there are things that you can do to tell it to think more like specific roles. So for example, back-end development, front-end, project planning, quality checks, security scans, performance optimization. This was ripped from a really good YouTube video. I should put a reference here, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But it was talking about Super Claude. If you just go on YouTube and do Super Claude, this guy gave a really good talk about this. But with the whole flags and personas thing, don't feel like you need to do this though. Like Super Claude 3 does this stuff for you. It will switch around and do all that for you. Slash memory. You can run this command. It'll tell you the context of what Claude has in its memory. So every time it runs something, you can put repeatable commands. You can put things that Claude should always take into consideration every time it builds something. So think linting, thing like, commands to make things easier. Stuff all that in a Claude MD file. And you can run /init in a brand new project to do that. The slide is not fully done. I'm sorry about that. But just know if you're just using Claude for the first time in a production system, first thing you should do is /init. And that way you can build a Claude MD file in your project and start giving it some good context. Because then you can commit that Claude MD file and share it with your whole team. Then everyone can improve that Claude MD file to be at its best when it's working through things. And by the way, if Claude does have, these moments where it gets off track and things like that, you can hit escape twice and you can go back in your session at any time if you think you threw it off the rails. I don't have a slide on that. I will add that, but just know that like if things start getting weird with Claude, it's doing too much. I know people are trying to run like multiple Claudes at the same time. You should really only try to run 2 at most if you're trying to get fancy. But anyway, if you're new to Claude, shout out Jeremy, he gave me these, but pay attention. Like, know what's going into the project. Like, as it's telling you changes it's going to go do, take into consideration how it's implementing it. Is there a better way to architect it? Is it taking domain-driven development into account? Is it putting it into the right place? Is it doing it by rewriting something when there's another function somewhere else that can do it and save some, make some cleaner code, right? Learn to control your context. So make sure you're really giving it, just enough that it needs, not over complicating it by saying go scan the whole project, because then it's going to use more tokens, figure more stuff out, and read the docs. The thing about all of this is we're in an ever-changing landscape right now. Like I just showed you, the guy who coined the term vibe coding, that was this year, people. Like this stuff is moving at an incredible rate. It's very difficult. I arguably probably worse than the whole JavaScript front end joke, right? Not, by the way, love JavaScript developers. I have a lot of respect for Node developers. It's not as easy as they make it to be, to write clean code anyway. But so stay up to date. Subscribe to things. I'll show you some of that here. Outside of Claude Code, here are some other things that I found really helpful as we wrap up the talk here, that I think that you guys can go take a peek at if you haven't heard about. That could be really useful to leverage AI in your everyday workflow. For example, I was on a road trip. My wife was driving. I tried to drive and she's like, no, I want to drive. You make me car sick. So I sat in the passenger seat, no internet, middle of the desert out here in Vegas, driving to the next town. I had Olama running on my machine. I was just using the GPU built right into my Mac to still generate code, to make images, to do some pretty cool things that, mind you, it takes forever, right? I don't have an entire Switch data center to go freaking run this for me, but it's still really cool. If you're on the train or this or the plane, like you can use AI still. I'd recommend you take a look at Gamma 3. This is a really powerful one. You may want to switch to something that's a little bit more usable given how much hardware you're working with. So consider the 4 billion or 12 billion parameter model. Maybe don't jump right into the 27 billion and expect it to give you fast responses. You can also take a look at Qwen 3 Coder. Again, this stuff changes all the time. I'm sure I'm going to have to update this in the future. But these are a couple that you could go take a look at that can help you with coding offline. Or if you're security conscious and you don't want to be feeding the entire internet with your code base, you can use these and have some relatively like high level of confidence. You're not just spewing stuff into the internet. There's also a really cool newsletter with There's an AI for that. This is a cool website that basically has a ton of AI tools. You can pretty much go here and type anything you want, and there's probably an AI for that. So take a look at it. The best thing I like about There's an AI for that is their newsletter. It's a really good way to stay on top of the AI trends and just kind of keep a gauge as to what's going on there. You can also take a look at Gemini. I really enjoyed this YouTube video over here. It had a couple of the AI founders talking about some of their workflows with Claude. Man, there's one in here that talks about this guy who's using GitHub Actions. And I mean, it reminds me of that. Like there was an old thing back in the day, a guy who like completely automated his job. In fact, he even automated his like messages to his wife, like, and just chilled all day. I mean, what a life. Now with AI, probably even more possible. But take a look at this video. It's actually a really good one. But one thing I wanted to highlight here is Gemini can actually take a YouTube URL and break it down for you. So for example, although I watched this video, I went to Gemini, and Gemini, since it's a Google product and they have built-in integrations with YouTube, it's able to go into the YouTube video and actually break it down into a logical thing for you. So that way you can like skim hours of content and break it down into highlights. Super, super, super cool. Gemini, by the way, incredible. The image generation that Gemini can do now, the whole like garbly-gook of text that AI used to do, Gemini's really got it down. In fact, even on the copyright side, I've had it do some stuff where I'm like, there's no way this is legal. And then there's also VO3. Sorry, I don't have actual like slides in here. I was going to make a video with VO3. I've actually been heavily using VO3 for some like social media stuff. Super, super powerful. Very, very impressive. Mind you, again, give it good context. If you're vague, it's going to give you garbage video. If you're super detailed, it's going to look a lot better. Still not perfect, but still, you can get some really cool videos, but you got to pay for Gemini. I probably pay like $500 a month now for AI. It's crazy. I got to go like double check what I'm paying for that I don't use anymore. What I love about Gemini too is it's great at troubleshooting errors. I haven't tried since ChatGPT 5 came out, but I quite commonly, when I'm dealing with like a Linux issue or whatever, I'll just go over to Gemini and I'll just paste in the issue. And it very quickly, like, for example, I had to go like find out where the trust store to install a self-signed certificate in a couple of Linux distros. And it was like, here it is, here's how you run it. And then I even ran into this other bug where AWS CLI wasn't seeing the self-signed cert. And it's like, oh, you need to tell AWS CLI where those certs are. Just throw this EMV exam, like mind-blowing. Like this would have took me hours of Googling and like figuring this out. Took me 5 minutes with Gemini. Another really powerful thing that's built in the AWS is called Amazon Q. It has context into your entire AWS environment. If you're not using this and you're a DevOps person with AWS, I would highly recommend taking a look at this. Even with the free tier, it's really powerful. So I am by no means like a super duper AWS expert, enough to be dangerous. But with Amazon Q, I can ask it vague questions like, how do I go check the access logs for my network load balancer? And it will go and discover stuff and tell you exactly how to go do it. Super, super cool. Microsoft Azure has their own thing too. Copilot's built into Azure, has context into everything. I've even heard to the point to where, you know, you can like tell it, go to my Excel spreadsheet in my, SharePoint, pull that, run these queries in this database. A little bit dangerous in my opinion. Hopefully you're only giving it read access. There was a horror story, by the way, where somebody like developed a startup and had AI like doing everything, even building the production server. And one day AI dropped the production database. And they were in a code freeze. They told AI like, hey, we're in a code freeze, don't make any changes. And it still, for some reason, just went off the rails. So just put some guardrails around it. If you can feel like you're running 120 miles an hour, kind of like I'm talking right now. I had a lot of coffee, so bear with me here, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, so, try to give it some guardrails. And then GCP has their own Gemini product. We talked about Gemini, but if you're using Google Cloud Compute, you can see right here, it's got Gemini built right in, and you can do the same stuff with those hosting platforms as well. Everybody's talking about Grok 4. It's so cool and blah, 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 blah. Man, I've tried to use Grok 4. I've even paid for it, which they try to bribe you with that stupid blue check mark. What a waste of money. Now, mind you, I'm still seeing like newsletters saying, oh, Grok 4 is the best thing since sliced bread, but I don't know. This thing was built different. I don't like it. So for me and my kind of views, pass on that. Thank you. I know I kind of had to zip through some of those. I'm kind of glad I got to dry run this talk because I kind of need to cut it down a little bit. Anyway, let me go through. Is there any questions in the chat here? I'm going to kind of go through here. Bobby Calhill says, vibe coding has been around for about 6 months. Cursor has YOLO mode, but you can blacklist, whitelist commands. Yeah, I didn't mention that, but definitely take a look at like blacklist commands because, in fact, db wipe in Laravel context of like wiping the database, that would have been a great command to put in the blacklist to say like never run this, right? Like only me should be running db wipe, right? Maybe that might be a pain with like tests and stuff like that. So you may need to kind of find a workaround, but still like put some guardrails on it so that way you don't kind of get ahead of yourself. Great comment there, Bobby. Logan says Claude Code MVP, but really like Junie also. Yeah, I've heard about Junie. Let's see here. Script that installs launchd and gives Claude root access. Does it give root access? I didn't think about that. It very well may. Jeremiah says, I used Playwright with Claude Code today, and it was wild. It added its own console logs and then ran the app to read them. Wow, okay. Ian says, I've used Sonnet 4 mainly for various hosted models. Haven't done much with Opus because it's so much more expensive. Agreed, right? I mean, like $200 a month isn't cheap, but with the power that you get, it's quite wild. Now, let me just go off the rails here for a little bit. I didn't include slides about Devin AI. And let me just kind of quickly pull that up here for you folks. So before I really started heavily using Claude, I was using Devin AI. There's something called Claude All Hands, Open Hands. That is kind of the competitor, let's call it, to Devin AI. This is a open source version of Devin AI. If you want something that just works out of the box and blah, 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 like Devin AI for sure does that, but it's so expensive. So I had it write something super simple. Like I hate front-end development. So I was like, hey, take this image and see how these fancy things, like these things lighting up in the background. I love stuff like this. So I was like, make this image flip around when you move the mouse around it. 3 PRs later after using Devin AI, it got it. It looked really great. Then I looked at my bill. It was $100 to make an image flip around. Like, holy cow. So Devin AI is expensive. However, the part I really like about Devin AI is its integrations. So what's really cool is Devin AI allows you to get integrated into your Slack, into your Linear. So it sits in your Slack and you can literally go @Devin. So for example, let's say you have Sentry and Sentry spits error logs into your chat. By the way, if you aren't using Sentry, to spit errors into a channel in Slack, you're doing it wrong. The integration is quite easy to set up. And then once those errors are coming into Slack, you can literally say, hey, Devin, go fix this error. And it will go, and Devin has its own, like, let's call it instance in the cloud with its own development environment. So you usually go into the instance, set up the development environment for Devin to go use, and then it repeatedly uses that session to go fix stuff. But again, super expensive. So if you have the patience, I would recommend you take a look at OpenHands. So sorry, I went off the rails there a little bit. Let's see if we have any more questions. Is SE Analyze similar prompt with UltraThink? So yeah, UltraThink, maybe I can find the Reddit for this real quick. It's going to be, let's see, deep thinking keywords. Take a look at this real quick. This was super funny. So inside of Claude's code, inside of Claude code, like the open source, here are the keywords it uses for all that think hard stuff. There are literally these kind of like breaks, if you want to call them, where it looks for certain keywords. So it's funny, Bobby, you said ultra think, because that's literally this. If you say think harder, think intensely, think longer, blah, 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 or you say ultra think, then it will go into this like super thinking, high token count kind of thing, right? And then, yeah, there's these like mega think. Anyway, I found this and I thought this was quite interesting because this was pulled from the Node library. Tried using Grok 4 for some coded stuff. It wasn't great. Yeah, that's my my impressions too. What are my thoughts on Junie? To be quite honest, I haven't used it that much. Now, JetBrains being a sponsor, I should go give this a shot. When they first had their AI thing, I already had my paid things and I didn't want to go learn another AI thing and reset it up. So I didn't like really put the time into doing it. I probably should have. But now with Junie and ChatGPT 5 coming out, perhaps this is way more powerful. So I should definitely check this out because this could be a lot cheaper, you know what I mean, than like signing up for Claude Pro Max thing. But there's a lot of like benchmarking and stuff going on right now with all of this stuff. And some of those benchmarks are not real everyday development tasks. Like some of those benchmarks can be gamed by the models to make it seem like it does a really good job, when in fact, when it comes to actually doing real world work, it doesn't perform as well. So just take that into consideration. Any other questions? That was like the last question I think I saw here. Highly recommend Longhorn PHP. Absolutely. Like I said, go to Longhorn PHP, get your early bird tickets. That's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, so I think we're about at time. If nobody else has any questions, I want to thank you to everybody that watched the video. Yeah, I appreciate everybody's time. And if you do have questions in the future, by the way, I want feedback on this talk. Sorry, I didn't share that last slide, but email me at josh@remotedevforce, DEV, remotedevforce.com with any feedback that you think that this talk should include. It's already jam-packed. I probably got to go slice some things out, but I'd love to hear from you folks about feedback on this talk. Thank you very much. I hear the clapping through the computer. I think a couple of you are clapping, hopefully. Maybe there's some booze.
Thank you, Josh. Solid presentation. And yeah, thanks for all the questions and comments in the chat. So for next month, we will have Bobby Cahill talking about monoliths and microservices and the back and forth between them. We'll have this posted up on the MergePHP website in terms of the talk description you're seeing right there. And that will be September 11th. I believe, let's see here. I think that's, trying to remember whether I'll be out or emceeing that day, but looking forward to that. And again, Josh, thanks so much for presenting today. Yep, with that, that concludes this month's Merge PHP. Thanks to all y'all who are either attending live or are tuning into the stream later. Have a wonderful evening, morning, etc. And we'll see you in the next one.
Bye. Thank you.